You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio, Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international, and oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Monday. Monday all day long, but it's a meatloaf Monday, and it's a good-looking meatloaf Monday, and JP's pushing buttons on the board. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Doing good on this Meatloaf Monday. Always good Meatloaf Monday.
Always good as Meatloaf Monday, yeah. Are you going to have meatloaf?
Maybe.
Okay.
I might just have to.
You just may. I remind me to tell you. All right. Hey, listen, we got a great show laid on for you. No guests today. Like last week was just filled up with guests. I thought there's a couple things that I want to really unpack in more detail today. So today, no guests, just a massive triple dipper filled up with good stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So first out the gate, I'm going to call it the all of the above energy. You know, I do the green new steel quite often, and the more I looked at it, the more I thought, you know what, rather than talk about what the Democrats keep trying to do, why don't we talk about where we're going? I'm gonna rephrase this now. It's the all of the above energy because that's what Trump is looking at bringing to bear. An all of the above energy policy that is like gainful, that is expectant, that is something that we should look forward to in a big, big way, and that we have every reason to be is going to be far more successful and meaningful to us as a nation. The all of the above energy policy with the new appointments for the Department of Interior and Department of Energy, and I'll tell you who those are, should be a game changer for America in every single way possible. So we'll talk about all of the above energy, number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, I'm calling it Save Our Kids. Y'all, I mean the stuff that the left keeps trying to do, desperately trying to do. And guess what? We're going to keep fighting back. You know why? Because it's our kids. There is no greater resource for this nation than our younger generation growing up to take the helm later. Our job is to be good stewards of those resources, and if you will allow me to use those terms, we should. We should use every ounce of what it means to be a good steward to invest in, care for, love on, grow, and just basically mentor our kids. And yet the left is constantly assaulting them, stealing innocence, robbing them of opportunities, and basically providing them with dogma that doesn't match reality. All that and more. We'll talk about it. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper, Save Our Kids. And then number 3, I love this, man, Peace Through Strength. I could have brought some guests in. I know I could have, but I thought, you know what? I just want to talk about it for a while. This is a passion of mine. Peace through strength. I love the idea that the world's going to look up and recognize that the United States is standing on the hill again. So we're going to talk about peace through strength and what's happening with our Pentagon right now. All right, speaking of which, let me jump on over here to the Right Side Way monologue, the opening monologue of the day, where I just share some thoughts with you that I put together. And this time, I got to tell you, if I had to give it a title, I'm calling this Expect Inspection. There's an old saying, you've all heard it, you can't expect what you don't inspect. Except there's a double standard out there. So in case you haven't noticed, there's a double standard. We've seen it time and time again. The little guy takes it on the chin, while the standards appear different if you know the right folks, or work the right angles, or toe the right lines, or sit in the right lofty office. Case in point, the Pentagon just failed a major annual audit. Again, for the 7th time. 7th time. Well, look, let me step back from that. The idea that the Pentagon, the top brass, can fail an audit. What about, can everybody do that? No. 20 years ago, hard to believe, but 20 years ago, I came home from my second tour overseas and I was reassigned from being a team leader to being a headquarters company commander. So any of you who have ever commanded a headquarters company, often known as an HHC, you know that one of the things that suddenly falls into your lap is personal responsibility and oversight for the largest property book among all your peers. I mean, all the ash and trash, right? All the excess gear, all the massive end items that make up the property book are assigned to your signature. And I'll be honest with you, it can be daunting. And depending on what kind of unit you're in, the inventory can be huge. So there I was, the newly minted HHC commander, right? But I had learned back when I was a young lieutenant, you never sign for it unless you can touch it. You don't gloss over the change of command inventories, because if something you signed for is not really there, well, guess who gets to pay for it later? Yep. So I took command, and then I made the date to inspect everything, and I mean everything. If there was a toolkit, I wanted to see the tool. If there was a weapon, I wanted to see the cleaning kit that went with it. If there was extra IBA or uniforms in supply, every boot, brush, and bale of wire, lottie-dottie, everybody, show me your stuff, or at least show me your sub-hand receipts that show who has it in their possession right then and there. Now look, at the time I was in a civil affairs battalion, and there were 2 line companies, and then there's 1 HHC, mine. We all changed commands at roughly the same time. The other 2 commanders, they did what I would call a handshake and a backslap with their buddies. They signed the papers, they went to dinner. Not me. I did mine, my inspections, from stem to stern. You see, that unit in just 5 years had done 3 deployments: Bosnia, Afghanistan, and Iraq. That's 3 out of 5 years totally mobilized with their gear traveling all over the world. I knew there was going to be shortfalls. I was not going to tote them on my books, and I was right. I came up, y'all, I kid you not, I came up with over $150,000 worth of missing gear and equipment, and I wouldn't sign for it. Now, some of it was going to be explainable. I mean, 3 years in a hostile fire zone, lateral transfers of equipment to other gaining units, people coming and going. It's madness, I get that. But some of it was just poor accountability. And my battalion commander was apoplectic when I told him. He wanted those inventories from me signed off and turned in, but I told him I wasn't going to do it. I told him I could not sign for what was not there. But I would agree to report the losses on what is known as a FLIPL. A FLIPL. Weird little acronym. It stands for a Financial Liability Investigation of Property Loss, FLIPL. It's a process that the Army uses to determine if somebody is financially responsible for the loss, damage, or destruction of government property. So basically, if something's missing, you write it down, what serial number it was, who had the last, hands on it, send it in. They tell you whether you got to pay for it or not. Sometimes they write them off. Sometimes they come back with a no finding, and sometimes they come back with a finding of fault, and they assign the person who's going to wind up losing part of their paycheck. Well, it does require an investigation, but a FLIPL can get ugly in a hurry. And my commander finally realized I was right, but then he turned to the other 2 commanders when he realized that I was right and I was going to turn in this massive FLIPL. I mean, like a massive one. When he realized they had not been thorough on their inspections, he made them go back and do their inventories all over again. And lo and behold, now that they were being scrutinized, they came up with massive shortfalls and more FLIPLs. It was awful, y'all, but it was also right. So we ran it up the chain to brigade, and brigade freaked out, and they ran it up to the CA command, who then freaked out and ran it all the way up to Fort Bragg's Civil Affairs and PSYOPs command, a 2-star general level. And the powers that be up there passed their own freak out back downhill and required that every single civil affairs unit stop what they were doing and conduct a line-by-line inventory of their entire property books. And y'all, the FLIPL started rolling in. I like to say I handed in my report and shut down a whole major Army command overnight. But the freak out was warranted, though. I mean, overall, across USACAPOC, the Civil Affairs Command, millions of dollars of military equipment was missing or unaccounted for. And it was not always about negligence. I mean, some of it was, but some of it was just poor accounting and lackadaisical inventories, I will be honest. But there were things that were destroyed in the combat zone. There were things that were lost in shipments. There were things that had been signed off on for the units that replaced them. I get that. But they're still taxpayer-funded items. There still needs to be a piece of paper that says where it went and who's got it. Things will break. They will be destroyed. They will be stolen. They will be lost. But at the very least, we knew we owed the taxpayers something more than just, shrugging our shoulders. All right, so back to where we are today. Apparently the Pentagon brass, they can get away with it. Down at the lower level, we can't. We turn in a FLIPL and we get our pay docked. But the Pentagon brass, shoot. Of the 28 reporting entities within the Pentagon force structure that were audited, 15 of them received what is known as a disclaimer of opinion. That's a fancy phrase that means the inspectors were not even given enough information to determine why the shortages and missing items were not even accountable. The Pentagon comptroller, a guy named Michael McCord, he said this. He said, quote, "Significant work remains and challenges lie ahead, but our annual audit continues to be a catalyst for department-wide financial management reform, resulting in greater financial integrity, transparency, and better supported warfighters, blah, 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 blah." What he basically said is, we're going to try real hard to do a better job. A catalyst, he says. Well, I hope so, because at the unit level, like I said, we were not allowed to have deficiencies. We got our training shut down to locate the smallest of end items. I was once in a unit that had an M16 rifle stolen. Just one. That's a big deal, y'all, but even still, everything shut down. The authorities were called in. Every vehicle, every footlocker, every nook and cranny was searched. It was a big, hairy deal. But the Pentagon? The Pentagon can lose or abandon $1 billion worth of equipment in Afghanistan and then just shrug their shoulders when the Taliban use it in their parades. Yeah, look, so this past weekend, comedian and sometimes liberal pundit Jon Stewart, he interviewed the Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks on C-SPAN. She tried to laugh it off at first, but to his credit, he would not let her just giggle and begin to hold her feet to the fire. He in Stewart's words, he said, "Most people would consider this waste, fraud, and abuse." Our current Deputy Defense Secretary then realized, oh, this was turning into a serious moment. And she jumped in, literally after giggling about why this is not a big deal. She comes back and says, "I'm trying to understand where you're going. I mean, other than the dollars, does it really bother you?" Giggle, giggle. And she went on then to try and deflect by claiming that audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. Okay. She's going to go with that? Really? She tried to wrap it up with some form of conclusion by claiming that just because we can't put our hands on something or know that something went from here to there, that doesn't mean waste, fraud, and abuse have occurred. All right, let's parse that down a bit, because I don't think that would fly in a court of law. You see, there is the fraud element, waste, fraud, and abuse. There's the fraud element that indicates deliberate action. I get that. But the waste and the abuse, those are legitimate concerns without question. And I'll be honest with you, they're pretty obvious. If you can't find $824 billion worth of stuff, because that's the amount the audit said is missing, if you can't find $824 billion worth of stuff that the taxpayers paid for, then maybe, just maybe, there's a smidge of at least waste and abuse, mixed with occasional fraud. And if you don't like the idea of it being couched as a criminal act, then at the very least, realize that the mere negligence of losing something would get a lowly company commander like I was fired for the same behavior. In a court of law, negligence is also actionable. Look, there's a reason why Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are being tapped to review government waste, because we have a great deal of waste in our government. We can't continue to fund transgender dance clubs in Bangladesh and pour money into tourism for Egypt and build bridges to nowhere in Alaska. We also can't continue to tell the troops in our great military that their personal accountability of weapons and equipment is so important they can be punished under the Code of Military Justice for failing to properly account for what they signed for, while at the same time allowing the leadership of the DoD to literally giggle on an interview and shrug and try to say that losing billions of dollars in military equipment and supplies is not equal to claims of waste, fraud, and abuse. It just is, all day long. Look, we cannot have a two-tiered layer of accountability, where the little guy takes it on the chin while the big guy laughs on C-SPAN and earns a big retirement bonus. Like I said, there's an old saying, you cannot expect what you don't inspect. And the Pentagon better expect to be inspected in the next few years to come. I'm just saying. And they should. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of y'all out there, green suiters and veterans and people in DoD land. You know exactly what I'm talking about. How many times have you heard, spend it or lose it? And you don't even know what happened to what you already had. We got to get away from that mentality. That's the kind of thing that drives us to trillions of dollars worth of debt. And the fact that they can't find $848 billion worth of stuff, they don't even know where it is, that's unconscionable. And that is waste, fraud, and abuse. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. I ran a little bit long on my monologue, so let me just jump right to the phones. Wolverine Dan's on the line. Wolverine Dan, how you doing, buddy?
Well, I'm doing quite well. My Lions are looking really good, bro. Anyway.
Yeah, they are.
They look real good. Anyway, with that said, you know what doesn't look good? I could have sworn you said 840 billion.
That's what I said, man. That's what I said.
Okay, all right. Everybody slow down for a second. Both parties here are involved in that theft, okay? I got a feeling both parties are involved. I'm not sure what percentage on either side, but that's just plain wrong. I'm telling you, it makes me sick to my stomach. You and I go to a grocery store. If I spend over $150, I get questioned on it. And these days, $150 don't buy squat. It's amazing, Phil. This is sad. It's called greed, and there's plenty enough money to go around if you do it fairly and divide it correctly and not cheat. But these are greedy, hungry, nasty human beings that, Phil, there is so much corruption, crime, you name it. The one thing I ask, when I leave this world, I want to be on like bleachers, right, where they got the pearly golden gates. I want to be on bleachers on the other side, and I'm in, right? But I want to see these people that are crooks and scumballs get turned back.
Well, they will, and we might need to pray for a few of them to actually get converted and saved before that time. So maybe we can get some things fixed down here too. But yeah, by the way, doesn't it make that sick to your stomach, Bill? It really makes me sick to my stomach. It does me too, and I know for a fact that some of it is just stuff that got lost in 20 years of war. I get that, but the reality is, if they're gonna claim that everybody else has to be accountable, then they should be too.
Well, we have the right guy in there now. I believe he's going to make things better, make things great again, of course. That's his motto. But the bottom line is he's going to get accountability, and we need to keep that going after he's gone. And I'm hoping J.D. could take the torch after he runs it for 4 years.
No doubt.
And keeps that accountability going and run this country correct.
Brother, I appreciate you. Up against the break, but thank you so much, man. Be careful.
See ya.
All right, we'll see you. Yeah, I don't know how to explain hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of just, we don't know where it is. But when you see that 15 of the agencies didn't even give enough information for the auditors to be able to do a full audit, that tells you they got a big problem. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Man, I'm saying, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, I'm talking about Alabama, y'all. Alabama, and I mean it when I say it. I mean, this show, way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gaston, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. I got phone calls and text messages, and I even got messages coming in on Twitter right now. Y'all are an amazing audience. By the way, speaking of Twitter, X, they call it now, if you want to follow us, we are just a few shy of our goal, our first goal of 500. We just opened up a brand new a media platform on X recently. So if you want to follow us, it's at Rightside_media on Twitter, X. You can also follow me personally at @SenPhilWilliams. That's SEN Phil Williams. Marcus I didn't say where, but Marcus on Twitter just said to me, he said, Phil, I was a supply sergeant for a CAV unit. Thank you for your service. Go CAV. He said, I had the little green book in my cargo pocket that had the often changing location of everything on the CO's property book. I knew where everything was better than the hand receipt holders. You were gold, man. You were money. Good supply sergeant can make or break you. I've had them both. I've had them good and I've had them lay down on the job. But yeah, man, I'm just telling you, good supply, you cannot beat good. You find a good supply sergeant, you get him a steady box of cigars, and you thank him every time you see him. Just saying. Let me go to the phones real quick. Carl from Decatur. Hey, Carl, how you doing, man?
Doing good, Phil. I appreciate them nuggets you're laying out for us.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
When I was in about 50 years ago, we had a case whereas if we had been in a wartime situation, a lot of people would have died because we didn't have enough trucks to pull our trailers, and even didn't have enough trucks to pull our APUs and gas tanks and all of that. Man, it was crazy. In Germany, I was in an aircraft company, and we were supposed to be mobile, but man, I mean, it was terrible in that the fact that we called things real simple. Well, I lose my thought. But at any rate, a $13,000 piece of equipment, tool and die set.
Oh yeah.
They was gonna make me pay $13,000 because they said it wasn't in my shop.
I bet.
However, think about that supply sergeant we had. He was crooked as all get out. He didn't want to go to the field, so he got rid of the truck some kind of way. And every time we had an alert, we couldn't go nowhere. We sit on the airfield. And I just thought, boy, if them Russians come, we don't have nothing to haul our equipment.
Yeah, he lightened his his supply book or his property book, but he made it harder for y'all to do your jobs, huh?
Yeah. We, like I said, we'd been dead.
Well, hey, Carl, thank you for your service, by the way. Appreciate you, man. Thank you very much.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you for your words.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you. Thomas Mathis checked in and says, great monologue. Nearly always follow the money. The fact that a massive amounts of money provided to contractors of all ilk for all government agencies makes me wonder if some lobbyists for those companies may donate to politicians can't. Well, of course they do. They're in diminishing providing audit information or any attempt to find the misplaced hardware, software. Listen, I don't think that there is. I think that there's some stuff that was stolen. I think there's some stuff that was abandoned or for that matter was just left behind on the battlefield. I think there's some stuff that you go into country, things are crazy. It's time to go home. You're so glad to get on the Freedom Bird and go home, and you're giving equipment to you're gaining your backfill units, and they're taking possession of it, and then you lose the hand receipts, and now you can't prove it. So there's all kinds of things that happen like that at the unit level. But we're also talking about big Army, big DOD. I mean, they've lost stuff at the friendly side, not just what happened in the war zone. And then we also know that in Afghanistan, they just abandoned $1 billion worth of equipment, much of which, by the way, had already been hand receipted over to the Afghan army. And I get that. So it really wasn't ours, but we still shouldn't have left it. But I look at this and think, when I worked in the Pentagon, I will never forget literally the email going out, towards the end of the fiscal year. Hey, got to spend it or lose it. Anybody need a new computer? Anybody want something? We can put new flat screens on the wall. Hey, who needs something for your office? And I'm like, what? If I was in the private sector doing that, basically what they're saying was there's no value in saving money because if you don't spend everything, guess what? You don't get as much next year. So in order to justify your spend, you had to spend big at the last minute. Every bit of that is supposed to be an accountable end item. Jeff Rowe from Indiana checked in and says, hey, Phil, the government's a lot like the Tyson fight. Cost a whole lot of money and you get a little bang for your buck. Did you try to watch that, by the way?
Yeah, I ended up watching it. My friends wanted to watch it, so I
did your
sat
Netflix
through
work?
It. Yeah, it was shaky, but it did the job during the fight itself. But it was about what I expected, that fight.
Well, I want to go back to the fight for a second, but I heard that most people spent more time buffering on Netflix than they did on watching.
So this was like the first pay-per-view event Netflix has ever done, and I don't think they were prepared for.
I'd say.
Don't think they were prepared for all the traffic, so it was pretty evident of that.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this: I'm going to jump back to the text messages in a minute, but that's the first thing I did Saturday morning. I got up, I got coffee, I checked to see what happened with the Tyson Jake Paul fight. So, was there any exciting moments at all?
No, no, not really. That fight was pretty much what I expected. It was just it was a glorified sparring match where one guy couldn't even physically throw a punch. It looked like, so it was sad. But I mean, at least Mike got his money, so there's that.
Well, there is that. So let me ask you this real quick though. Jake Paul says at one point he could see that four rounds in that Tyson was already out of gas, and so he was pulling back himself. Could you see that? Could you tell?
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just. It's still so shameless for Jake Paul to even do that fight in the first place. Yeah. So I'm not going to give him credit for taking it easy on him when he knew that's what the fight was going to be in the first place. So,
well, I saw a meme this morning from Babylon B says that the Kamala Harris campaign intends to make up the loss of having $20 million of campaign debt by Kamala fighting Jake Paul.
I will say, I think the highlight of the night was Mike Tyson's butt getting shown on Netflix. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
He did a pre-fight interview, and at the end of the interview, the camera kept rolling, and he walked away, and he was wearing a jock strap, but that was it.
And that was what?
And that picture has gone viral all over Twitter. So I think Mike Tyson's butt being shown on the stream was the highlight of the night.
In more ways than one, I'm sure. All right, let me jump back on this amazing audience's text messages. I'll take it all the way to the break here, catching y'all's input. Mike from Arab says, regards to the Pentagon again, he says, I see the missing money differently. They know exactly where it went, laundered through Ukraine. Okay, we're talking about, okay, Mike, I get you, but we're talking about apples and oranges. This is an audit of where did a thing go as opposed to we wrote a check. That's different. Not that I'm excusing the massive amounts of money sent to Ukraine without a plan attached to it, but yeah, it's not quite the same thing. Jeff from Indiana again says Tyson wasn't out of gas. He just needed a pacifier instead of a mouthpiece. What? Okay, we're gonna go. John from Elkmont. He says $840 billion. That's 42 million taxpayer dollars paying $20,000 a piece. Yep, I'm just saying. And guess what? Apparently they can get away with it. Gray Falcon from Ardmore says, Phil, that's over 10 new Gerald R. Ford class aircraft carriers. Wow. That's sobering. Mike from Florence says, waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm sure you know about TVA surplus auctions. I've been there for some, worked there during sorting and prior to auction. Auctioning off some of what they do is enough waste alone. You wouldn't believe all the things that are simply discarded. The way I was told was that since it is a government-funded facility, they can't show a profit. And like you said, if they don't use it, they lose it for the next fiscal year, backwards from what it should be. They should be rewarded for the savings, and the surplus should go into interest-bearing savings. I agree. Wouldn't that be amazing? Pay off the debt. How about that? Wouldn't that be amazing? But at least the TVA surplus auctions, they know where it went. They have a paper trail. That truck that they no longer needed went to an auction. Somebody bought it for X amount of dollars. This is the Pentagon saying we don't even know where it is. We have no idea. Kimball from Harvest says Army units can't even leave the field without 100% accountability. That's exactly right, at least of sensitive items. I mean, listen, we would go to the field and then you come out and do a layout inspection. Where's your night vision devices? Where's the T&E and the Pendle for your M60? Who's got, this piece of equipment, that piece of equipment, all weapons accounted for, turn them back in by serial number, get your card back when you turn it in, your weapons card. Listen, yes. People got destroyed, Kimball says, for honestly losing things during operations. The administration has refused to hold its key leaders accountable for any of the various instances of malfeasance. I hope that the adults will go back in charge for the months to come, and that includes Matt Gaetz. There you go. Last couple, and then I'll take it to the break. Allie from Athens says, in Iraq, we couldn't have deficiencies either, and our equipment largely constituted ping pong paddles and ping pong balls. Well done, Colonel, she says. No deficiencies. Layout inspection of your ping pong balls. Hugh from Huntsville says, we ought to start with who we just elected. Pass a full government budget or get relieved from duty in Congress. Your job. Get it done. Ed P. from Huntsville says, Phil, I feel your pain, brother. As a service battery commander, I was personally responsible for over $6 million of equipment and over 300 soldiers. Woo! So I did 4 change of command inventories, and I put my hands on every screwdriver, frying pan, and fuse wrench. Anything missing was purchased by the responsible soldier on the spot. It's disgusting that our government's not held to the same standard of accountability. Preach it to me, Ed P., and thank you for your service, by the way. Yeah, man, listen, when I was a battalion commander, that's one of the first things I did. What do I have to sign for? And show me the sub-hand receipts for everything else. And then I made every company do the same. As I come in as a battalion commander, you will provide to me copies of your sub-hand receipts and a copy of your inventories. And they had to go down and do it. Bruce from Hazel Green just wants to make sure I got to see that he's driving his 2020 Bullet Mustang around Talladega Superspeedway. I am now eminently car jealous. He not only has a 2020 Bullet Mustang, he's also driving it on the track at Talladega. I want to play. I want to play. Last two. Stephen Melkmont says, great monologue today, Colonel. After 25 plus years in uniform and an additional 14 in defense-related civil service positions, I find it truly heartbreaking that the upper echelon of military leadership seems bereft of any knowledge of basic leadership principles when it comes to accountability. Whatever happened to leadership through example? Yeah, they don't have it, but right now they're so filled up with DEI hires that the people they've got in positions right now don't have a clue because they've never had to have a clue. In fact, most of them have never had to lead a thing in their life. And then lastly, Jeremy from Madison says, my goodness, what a great monologue. Every citizen ought to hear it. Bravo. All right, listen, we're taking a break right now. Appreciate all of you. Great input. We'll keep it moving. Coming up next, I'm jumping into where are we going with energy? Oh my, it's going to be a whole new day, you guys. A whole new day. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Man, I'm talking about making common sense like a superpower. All right, so I'm going to dipper number one here. Number one on the triple dipper is the all of the above energy. So I thought about, I think I even had planned on doing this last week, as a matter of fact. And I was calling it the Green New Steel arrested. That's what I was calling it. Green New Steel arrested. Well, I have for the last 3.5 years done the occasional segment on energy policies under the Biden administration, and I called it the Green New Steel because that's what it's been. I mean, it has been one gerrymandered, agenda-driven, nonsensical, non-economic, fiscally responsible effort daily by the Biden administration to ruin our economy, literally ruin our economy. Now think about everything touched by energy. It can be everything from, how about this, farm to market. Well, it costs gas to get your stuff to the market. Or for that matter, it costs fuel to get your crops, grown. You've got any number of things on the farm that require not just fuel, but also the additional aspects of fertilizer and all the things that are so often being regulated in our new green energy environment. And then you've got questions of overregulation. And then you've got you bring it all to bear, and it winds up having a dramatic impact on just the food economy. But then look at what they've done with the automobile industry. That's the private sector. They have regulated it into oblivion. You've got Ford posting that they are losing billions of dollars annually, billions of dollars on the push for, green energy vehicles. And all of it because the government said, we know better and we're going to skip the whole private sector free market thing and they're going to tell you how to build a car. Now, again, if you want an electric vehicle, fine, but don't try and tell everybody that's what we're going to do. Doesn't matter how much it costs, doesn't matter whether we have the infrastructure, we're just going to do it. I got news. That is not the free market. It's not. It doesn't work that way. And then on top of that, you got, I don't know, how about this? Our strategic oil reserves. There's national security. Our strategic oil reserves are virtually depleted. Biden has drained them. Why? Because he let us get so out of balance with our energy dependence versus independence that at some point, in order to try and bring the cost down, he flooded the market with oil from our strategic oil reserves, except that it's only a short-term Band-Aid moment. It doesn't have a lasting effect because it's not policy-driven. He's doing something that is literally situational. And if all you're doing is situational Band-Aids, then the sucking chest wound never gets healed. And so here we are with energy policies that did nothing but destroy our economy. Everything got more expensive, and almost all of it can be traced back to the energy policies of the Biden administration. In every category, the whole of government approach to the Biden administration's war on fossil fuels and absolute determination that climate change is the existential threat to the world has driven our economy to 40-year high inflation rates. Now, sure, there were other contributing factors. I do know we had a COVID pandemic. Yes, I did. And guess who was in charge of it? That'd be the Biden administration. So I can't give them too many props for having to survive a pandemic because they're the ones who shut down our economy. Then there's a supply chain. Yeah, Pete Buttigieg kind of screwed that one up. Just saying, Department of Transportation, when they can't get ships into port, maybe the Department of Transportation guy shouldn't go take 60 days of paternity leave because he and his gay partner decided to adopt a child. Just saying, there was no breastfeeding to learn how to do. It doesn't work that way. We needed you back there on the job and you failed. So all these things are happening and they are coalescing to have a dramatic impact on our nation. Think about what that also does to military costs, defense readiness, the ability to just put the fuel in the vehicle so you can train, much less fight. All of these things matter. When you have an energy sector that is not dependent upon foreign governments, then guess what? All of a sudden your foreign policy has a bit more strength in it. Right now, we can look at China and go, you better stop doing that. And they're going to go, well, how badly do you want those energy reserves to grow? Well, how badly do you want those microchip conductors that come from Taiwan? We can look at Russia and say, stop doing what you're doing. And Russia can say, that's okay, I'll just sell energy to Eastern Europe because they need it now, because we can't get it from the US. On and on and on. But when we become energy independent, when we have the ability to literally say to the world, yeah, we don't need your stuff. It's okay, we're good. They lose a bargaining chip over us. So yes, it's economy. Yes, it's national security. Yes, it's foreign policy. Energy is at the helm of virtually every aspect of what it takes to make this country successful. And I'm going to tell you when we get back about the policies that we know they're putting forth and who the nominees are to help chair the fight. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 here on a Meatloaf Monday. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. By the way, if you want to get on board with the new newsletter, and I will say this, the newsletter had to get retooled today. Not our fault. It was something in our email system. We plugged in a whole ton of new potential subscribers, and it asked for a 24-hour review, which I guess is part of their security. Anyway, so don't be put off if you're one of the new subscribers to the Right Side Report newsletter that goes out every single day. It did not go out today. Not our fault. It was on the part of the other folks because they're looking at us going, how'd you get so many all at one time? It's a good problem to have. Anyway, if you want to get the Right Side Report come to your inbox every single day, all you got to do is this. Text the word newsletter. That's newsletter, one word. Text the word newsletter to 833-687-4448. That's our usual number, right? 833-68-RIGHT. Check the word newsletter, text it, and you'll get an immediate reply back that tells you, hey, just click this link, give us your email address, you're in. Every day you'll get the email update, the Right Side Report. It'll have things that are coming on the Right Side Radio show. You'll get it in advance. You'll know the resources that we're going to use in case you want to find some of the articles that I quote. We're going to have information in there about when we sell new swag like T-shirts and hats, which are just about to arrive. We got things that are happening with our podcasts and lots of new announcements coming up in the near future. So you want to get the Right Side Report? We'd love to put you on the list. Just text the word newsletter to 833-68-RIGHT. All right, we're in number 1 of the Triple Dipper, the all of the above energy. I think I started to say, and I may have gone off on a rabbit trail, so I'll go back and reconfirm that I renamed this one. It was going to be called The Green New Steel Arrested, and I thought, you know what? I'm tired of talking all about what they've been doing in the past because we know how jacked up it's been. How about we talk forward? Well, if we're talking forward, it's not a Green New Steel. If we're talking forward, what we're looking at is Trump's Agenda 47, they call it. Agenda 47 includes an all-of-the-above energy policy. And that's the way to go, y'all. Look, I know that you can generate electricity with a wind farm. I know that you can generate electricity with solar. I do. I know that you can drive an electric car and get from point A to point B, usually. All that to say, I'm not opposed to the idea, but I totally balk at the idea that we just break what has been working and pretend that it's not there anymore and move to something else which we're not ready for. And we are not ready for 100% electric vehicles by the year 2035. So we've got carbon offsets and everything else to help with stop it. That makes no sense. Well, so what's in this Agenda 47? What's in this all of the above energy policy? Well, I thought, you know what? Don't waste time searching the news sources on this one. Go straight to the Donald Trump policy platform. So Trump has announced, and he's been very firm about it, he says we're going to have the lowest cost of energy of any industrial country anywhere on earth. Bold words, Cotton. Bold words. But you know what? He's done it before, so why not? He says on day 1, he's going to rescind every one of Joe Biden's industry-killing, job-killing, pro-China, anti-American electricity regulations. What does that mean? Well, number 1, he said to keep pace with the world economy, that depends on fossil fuels for more than 80% of its energy. We're going to up our drilling. Drill, baby, drill. You've heard him say it. He means it. We're going to be literally expanding federal drilling permits and leases. We're going to be literally looking at increasing capabilities. Removing regulations to allow the oil and gas industry to get back to the top in the world that we know it can be. I mean, Joe Biden has increased the cost of oil and gas leases by up to 50% and reduced the available acreage for it by 80%. And no, we're not talking about all on federal lands. We're talking about not permitting things even on private lands. And by the way, that has a massive impact on the state of Alabama. You may not realize how much oil and gas comes out of the Gulf of Mexico in the Alabama territorial waters. We make a huge amount of state revenue for our rainy day trust fund because Alabama is one of the most solvent states in the nation, if you didn't know it. We have a balanced budget requirement. We've been balancing the budget ever since we took over, the Republicans took over in 2010. And we have a rainy day fund set aside for our entire budget and a complete rainy day fund that has billions and billions of dollars in it. And it's funded in large part by revenues from oil and gas offshore royalties. And we've had that shut down by the Biden administration. He says he's going to speed up the approval of natural gas pipelines, especially in what's known as the Marcellus Shale, which is Pennsylvania, West Virginia, New York. He's going to fill up our strategic petroleum reserves that were drained over the past 4 years. By the way, they're at their lowest level in 40 years right now. Lowest level in 40 years, our strategic reserves. He's going to exit the unfair Paris Climate Accords and get us out of all the Green New Deal policies that have been choking our putting regulatory burdens on all of our industry. And then here's the thing. He's going to stop, and I love this, he's going to stop all the Biden policies that distort the energy markets. That's what I've been talking about. The things that literally say, screw the free market. Let's go ahead and gerrymander that and make sure it's agenda-driven. We want an agenda-driven market. That makes sense. No, it doesn't. All that does is make our costs go up. So the Department of Energy, the EPA, all of which have regulations that prevent Americans from doing things like buying incandescent light bulbs, putting gas stoves in their houses, having quality dishwashers, having high-capacity shower heads in your shower. All those things, start ripping those regulations out. Let people have what they want to have. He's also got in his plan for the all of the above a support for nuclear energy production. He's going to keep existing plants open, not allow them to be shut down needlessly. He's also going to invest in what are known as small, innovative, modular reactors. I'm just listen. I look at this and think, my gosh, this is nothing but good stuff. And I don't know how to explain the fact that it was they saw fit to do away with it before, but the reality is we have had our energy sector needlessly, scandalously ransacked for the last 4 years. And I look at it, he's going to champion dams and hydroelectric power. He's going to champion nuclear energy. He's going to champion deregulation. He's going to champion oil and gas. You know what this means? All of the above. And then he looks at one of the states in his policies that gives you an idea of what things could be like if we don't stem the tide of the Green New Deal. He says the average household in California uses half as much energy as the national average, but it pays $1,700 more per average than the second highest state in the nation. That's unbelievable. And we do not want Alabama or any other state to be like that. Listen, all of the above is where we got to be, and that's where we're headed. Now, all the more reason for him to find someone to man the helm, if you will, or some ones, I guess I should say. But we're looking right now at, I guess if I had to sum it up in reading and preparing for the show, it's as if there's like three legs to the stool for the Trump energy policy. And I would give it to you this way. Energy independence, that's one. Economic growth, that's another. And expanded production of traditional fossil fuels, that's number three. So that's nothing but good for me and you. That's nothing but good for us at the gas pump. That's good for us on the price of goods at market. That's good for us in terms of foreign policy and in terms of national security, all of it. Listen, I can't wait. Can we start tomorrow? Can we start today? I'm ready. I know y'all are. And I'll say this too. This is an important piece. He is not going to abandon clean energy. I don't think he should. He's not. And in a minute, after we get to the next break, I'll tell you why I know for a fact he's not going to. But he's espoused to that he is okay with clean energy remaining. He's got some beef with subsidizing clean energy. He's got some beef with taxpayers funding what the private sector should be doing. He's got the real beef with government getting involved in the free market. But he's not going to abandon the idea of of wind and solar. He's going to ask for them to be done private sector good, private sector funded. Build the better mousetrap, and then people will beat a path to your door. But if you can't play in the market like everybody else does, if you can't play in the market like the guys in the oil and gas industry do, then why are we talking to you? Build the thing that's innovative, and not cost prohibitive, and actually works long term and provides the energy that we need. And guess what? We'll be there for you. But until then, you're a novelty. You're an addition to the portfolio. You're not the portfolio. And by the way, I can remember talking years ago when I was in office, talking to some guys from Alabama Power. I was talking to them one day about a wind farm that was trying to build in my area. And it was a huge nut roll. And I probably ought to tell that story when I get back from the break. But I talked to them and I said, you guys have wind in your portfolio? He says, we have to. We're required to. I said, you're required to? What makes more sense for the people of Alabama? And they said, exactly, but we're still required to by the federal government. Now we got to get away from that inane sense of the government knows best, because guess what? We found time and again it doesn't. Trump's going to have an all of the above policy. When we get back from this break, I'll tell you about the guys that he has now tapped to lead the charge on that for him. Two guys, Department of Interior and Department of Energy. Who are they, and how do we know they're going to be good? Well, they're certainly better than what we got. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Test. Test. All right. Turn it down. Test. I can't hear myself now. Test. I got nothing. Turn it up a little more. Test. That's better on my end. Are you hearing the air conditioner?
Yeah, I was that's why I looked up when it turned on. It's just
okay.
I don't know how else to fix that, but
why isn't your microphone coming up? You have trouble lifting this thing up to where you're having to bend down to get to it.
yeah.
Put it where you want it.
Check. Yep.
are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. Got some great text. Let me get a couple of those, and I'll move forward. Brian from Decatur says we need to keep a running list of all these Republican representatives and senators siding with Democrats in the upcoming years to work against Trump agendas. Okay. Not hard to do. The running list is called the vote record. John from Decatur says, since the Supreme Court overturned the Chevron deference, how can the EPA overreaching rules still apply? See how these rules were not passed by Congress. Some of them won't. Some of them will be able to, but some of them have to be revoked by executive order because they are executive orders, not just regulatory agencies. If the regulatory agency put something in effect under direction from an executive order, it takes on a slightly different flavor. If the regulatory agency was simply interpreting a law their way, then it's a different animal altogether. Mark from Decatur says, I hope he bans the 1.6 gallon per flush on commodes. It sometimes takes 2 or 3 flushes, which does not save water. He wanted to do this his last term, but he was ignored. Do it, Mr. President. Might need a high fiber diet. Just saying. But then again, I do get it. You're just looking at me right now. JP's just shaking his head at me. You know that was funny.
You're not wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong.
You can hit the laugh button if you want to on that. You're just saying. High fiber diet, 1.6 gallon flush. That's what I'm saying. Stephen from Somerville says, indicator leaving out where the 31 and 67 meet. There is two. Okay. Okay, I don't know what you're saying to me, Stephen. You got a wreck out there on the roads that people are going to be driving. Just tell me what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know which road you're on.
Where the 31, and I have no idea what that is either.
Where 31 and 67 meet, there are 2 car wrecks. Okay. But okay, thanks. Listen, let's go back to this all of the above energy. You got to have somebody at the helm. So Trump's nominees are coming in fast and furious. He's doing a great job of getting his picks out there early. If you remember, we were way into December before he was still picking people. I think Department of Energy was Rick Perry last time, and he didn't get tapped for a nomination until sometime in like mid-December. So right now we're at mid-November, and we already have a ton of the cabinet already tapped. The 2 people that you're going to see at the helm, besides the president and his own, immediate staff, that are going to have the most impact on our ability to get back to energy relevance are North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, and a guy by the name of Chris Wright. Who are these people? Well, Doug Burgum has now been tapped to be the Secretary of the Interior. No, that's not just the park system. That's all the federal leases of lands for oil and gas drilling. Aha! Yes, indeed. So Burgum has already said that he absolutely believes that Trump is going to halt Joe Biden's attack on fossil fuels. He himself has been very active in that during his time as governor in North Dakota. He's a Stanford business graduate, an aggressive champion of the oil and gas industry. All of this according to the Washington Post, Dateline 3 days ago. And he basically says this is what he's going to do. He's going to be championing the ability to get energy on track using his position as Secretary of the Interior. Love that. Then there's this. CEO Chris Wright is being tapped to be the Secretary of the Department of Energy. Really? Yes. Who is he? Well, he's the CEO and founder of a company called Liberty Energy. So he has worked in the nuclear, solar, geothermal, and oil and gas industries. He has a degree from MIT with master's level work also from MIT and UC Berkeley in mechanical engineering. He is a pioneer who helped launch the American shale revolution that helped fuel American energy independence, according to Trump's statement. All of these things are interesting. What's also interesting, though, is what the left is saying about him. If the left doesn't like him, then I'm for it. Trump's pick for Secretary of Energy is a fracking executive who downplays the climate crisis. No, say it's not true. He's a climate skeptic. No. He's a climate change denier. No. Bring him on, man. Bring him on with great fanfare. I will blow the trumpets myself. All right, so he's a big supporter of oil and gas, but he's also for all of the above. He's big into nuclear. He's big into he's done work in the solar industry, like I said, and he wants to lift all the restrictions on liquefied natural gas exports. He wants to get us back to, making sure that we're not only energy independent, but that we're a net exporter of energy, because that's huge. And then on top of that, you got the fact that he is not buying what they're selling when it comes to all the climate change hypermania. Story on Barron's.com. Says Wright has become an increasingly outspoken critic of environmental policies. He made a video last year that said there is no climate crisis or true energy transition, uploaded it to his LinkedIn. LinkedIn pulled the video down, flagging it as misinformation. Okay, tells me all I need to know, brother. The guy is a so-called climate skeptic. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my, I'm for it. So right now, I'm digging the fact that Trump has a, all of the above policy that's nothing but good for us. He has a B, day one promise to shut down clean energy products and make sure that they are free market friendly. And he has picked Doug Burgum to head up Interior and Chris Wright to head up Energy. Y'all, I suspect it's going to be a whole new day. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one, I do mean this one right here, the one I'm sitting in, Alabama. Y'all, this show goes way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. All right, so I'm going to switch dippers here momentarily, talk about saving our kids. Before I do that, though, let me grab a few text messages. Rich from Coleman says, the only question that should be asked of any and all of President Trump's picks for his cabinet should be, do you support and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America? When they say yes, they're hired. Just my thought. Have a great day, and yes, I am talking to my phone because I'm driving. Good for you, Rich. Yeah, I mean, first of all, they'll have to. That is exactly, you're talking about the confirmation process, I'm sure. But, I mean, they got to be asked about how they would do the job. But you're right. I think question one is, will you support and defend the Constitution, which is exactly what you're going to have to say when you're sworn in. Scott from Ardmore says, Phil, howdy. I'm overjoyed with the selections for Interior and Energy. Said I was one of the few quality assurance reps down in Mexico for the last filling of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Wow. He says, one of my former commanders manages a couple of Strategic Petroleum Reserve sites down in Louisiana. I know he'll be happy to have product coming in instead of outgoing. The Biden administration did this country's readiness a grave disservice. Keep on them, brother. Love the pick for energy. Scott. And then he says, a coal miner's son. Oh, awesome. Scott, thank you. By the way, I'm a coal miner's grandson, just so you know. So a lot of people don't realize to the extent that Alabama was filled with coal mines. Not so many now. But my granddaddy on my dad's side was a coal miner in Edgewater, a little place in little community in Jefferson County, I believe. And when those mines shut down, he went over to the steel plants in Fairfield and worked there for, 35, 40 years. A steel man. Mike from Florence said, it is not a coincidence that last year is the first time I know of that we had planned brownouts. When they started shutting down at the coal-fired plant several years ago, I said it was coming. Also, for a modest fee, he said, I can modify your water-saving shower head. He said, ask my sister about my water pressure. I bet it's good. Man, I'll tell you what, this has been some more kind of a day for me, part of which was made all the more ludicrous as I got up this morning and realized they were installing there's a new subdivision kind of growing up nearby, and they're putting in new fire hydrants. So my water pressure was like a trickle this morning. Yeah, it's a heck of a thing when you get in the shower and all of a sudden your water goes down to a trickle while you're trying to get the soap off. Just saying. Like my big fat rain shower head. What?
Did you finish up? Did you go down to the bank outside in your backyard and finish bathing out there?
Yeah, just in the muddy Coosa River. Yes, That would do me real good. just step out there. By the way, I have waded out in there before trying to get rid of water weeds and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's some muck mud. I don't mean like a little bit. There's some muck mud. I was wearing waders because just because. I thought I might not get back out. At some point, I'm literally, it's going down to my knee and it's still going, and I'm fighting to get out of the waders and try to crawl back to the shore. And I was a little afraid that it was going to wind up being a stump hole or something that I couldn't. Anyway, there's muck mud in that river, brother. Not like a little bit, like muck mud. Jerry from Hartselle, last one, he says, oh, the wreck. Okay, so he says the Decatur Crossroads at the Lynn Layton Chevrolet, there's a big wreck. Okay. All right, now I see. Well, blessings on him. I hope it goes well. By the way, I found out last night, this is a total aside, a friend of mine was driving to church on I-59 yesterday near the Asheville exit, near the rest stop down there towards Asheville on I-59. And he said they had our cruise control fixed on 70. We're just cruising down the road. He said a guy came flying up behind them. The trooper said later on he must have been doing at least 100 miles an hour. Without touching the brakes, slammed into the rear of their car, drove them right off the road. They flipped and rolled multiple times. And all they know is the Hispanic male who was driving got out of his vehicle and ran off into the woods, and they didn't catch him. However, the Hispanic passenger stayed to try and render aid, and the troopers were talking to him. The suspicion is that the guy was here illegally and he tried to get away. But all that to say, my friends were really messed up. Bunch of broken ribs, broken toes, but they still, for all practical purposes, walked away from it. Praise God. I don't know why I felt like telling that story, but anyway. What? You just
I don't know. It also illustrates the illegal immigration problem in this country, and then they're going to go 100 miles per hour into somebody else.
Are you patronizing me right now?
No, I'm not. I'm trying to trying to conjure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Badger from Athens, last one. He says, worked in Antarctica for 5 years. One scientist shared his finds before leaving. He says the gist is being climate change is cyclic, and it was all actually getting colder down there. His results didn't match his sponsor's desires. He was not asked to come back. Wow, I believe it. Didn't fit the agenda. There weren't enough polar bears dying, I guess, floating off into the the great beyond on their broken icebergs. And this, listen, Al Gore can't get rich if climate. By the way, think about that before I leave this topic. Where have we been in my lifetime? I think at some point it was just, remember the Native American, the Indian guy with the single tear rolling down his cheek because of trash on the side of the road? That's where it all started. And then it went from there to, save the rainforest and save the whale. And then it went from there to, what was next? Was it acid rain? I think acid rain was next. Acid rain was going to wipe out crops everywhere. It was rolling in. It was going to sweep across the plains. It was like the next version of the Dust Bowl. It was going to wipe us out. Acid rain. Acid rain turned out to be a non-issue, kind of went away. So next thing we had was it global warming, I think, next? Global warming was next. And then it went from global warming to, inexplicably, it went to global cooling, and the next ice age was going to happen. And then they realized maybe it was backwards. Maybe it was global cooling first, then it was global warming because we were losing the icebergs. That's what it was. The ice cap was melting, and the waters were going to rise. And suddenly, like everything west of Kansas was going to be underwater, and then next thing you know, storms were going to be happening that were going to be like wiping the whole movie industry was buying into the disaster, and then none of it was really panning out, so they just went ahead and said, let's call it climate change so it can be anything. And now they can blame it on anything. They finally got wise. If you're too specific, they catch you when it's not right. If you say that we're going to have global warming and it doesn't warm, what do? We can't raise money on that. So now it's just climate change. And it's the existential threat of our time, even to the extent that the Department of Energy, the Department of Education, the Department of the Interior, the Department of Defense, all God's departments got to have their climate change existential threat plan. Just saying. Andrew from Athens says, he's talking about the wreck. He said, I almost got hit this morning at a four-way stop. I stopped, and after I started to move, this car ran through the intersection without stopping. It's a 45 mile per hour zone. He had to be going 80s or 90s. Lord, bless you, Lord. And then lastly, Brian from Somerville says, hey, Phil, in the water, climate change is a real thing. Of course, back in my day, we called it seasonal spring, summer, fall, and winter. Nice. All right, listen, we're going to jump into this next topic. And I'll be honest with you. This one is near and dear to my heart. Save our kids. There's not enough we can say about this. I really feel like that one of those things for which a nation can be judged is how it takes care of its kids. You look at scripture. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in the Bible I would look at something and I'd see, how did they get to the point that pagans can sacrifice their children on the altar of these false gods? And yet, where are we today? As false agendas like transgenderism has allowed children to basically be sacrificed on the altar of the agenda in order to authenticate the agenda itself. Gender affirming care, by the way, is not affirming of anything. It's gender non-confirming. This whole idea of gender affirming care is like saying, we know you're broken, so we don't want you to be what you were born to be. We want to fix you the way we think you should be, and we're going to mold you in an image that God never intended. It's going to be fine. And it never is. we're looking at things right now where kids are being raised to believe that the use of pronouns does not have to match what the English language says. That they're being raised up to believe that boys participating in girls' sports or using the girls' room at the the sports complex or the schools is just okay, and it's not. And you got to look at what is happening in and around this with not just changing their lives, but even the ones who don't want to accept it are having their lives negatively impact. And then there's school choice. I mean, when it comes to education, what we are doing with our kids right now is absolutely a travesty. We have allowed a education policy institution called the Department of Education to oppose anything that would make sense in terms of growing the ability of America to have educated kids. Well, look, we're going to take a break right now. When I get right back, we're going to jump on into this, and I'll start diving through these. You're welcome to chime in. Y'all's feedback is just as important on this show as mine is. But I'm just telling you, save our kids. That ought to be one of the things that we are known for as a nation, is that we are put our kids in greater priority than what they have been. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower as we give you all the truth you can slap on a bumper sticker. So I'm in number 2 of the Triple Dipper. Save our kids. I said before the break, and I mean it, y'all, that how a nation cares for its children is, in my opinion, something that is landmark in its scope. It is something for which a nation can be judged. We could talk about abortion all day. I mean, I really do believe that's a part of what I'm talking about, but I know that I could spend the entire time talking about that, so I'll leave that on the table. I'll suffice to say that I believe that that is a part of the discussion. So those of y'all that are, out there saying, Phil, talk about the abortion piece, listen, that is so big I could almost talk about it all by itself. But I will say, caveat, that one of the first things I believe that a nation can be judged for is the fact that it's willing to, kill its children. Abortion. So there's that. But then once a child is born, what are we doing to steward the great responsibility we've been given to raise kids? And I'll just be honest with you. Sometimes I look around at who's allowed to be a parent, and I think, well, how did that even happen? Sometimes I also look at the way society handles things, though. And while I can't control what happens in someone's individual home, I can have a voice in culture, and that's where I'm called to be right now, is to try and impact culture with the spoken word. And I'm telling you, what we are doing with kids is something that we will have to answer to. There are a couple of things that I believe are going to be subjects of mass tort litigation in the future. I give it within the next 10 years, you're going to see 2 things that are going to become subjects of mass tort litigation, like class action lawsuits is what I'm talking about, mass tort litigation. One is going to be the impact of mandating COVID shots on people and the long-term effects they are now experiencing because government made them take a shot they did not want to take, and they have health ramifications from it. That's going to be a subject of mass tort litigation. It's going to be up there with Agent Orange and all the rest of it. But the other one that I believe that we're going to see in mass tort litigation are the numbers of kids who have been sterilized for life, who have been surgically altered, who have been psychologically damaged by the transgender industry, the healthcare side of it, the psychology side of it, and even what happens in just the media and in, cultural organizations that speak into the moment on a daily basis. We're looking right now, look at this. I've got an article here from townhall.com. Let me grab this piece. Townhall.com. Dateline yesterday. It says, here's how transgender minors are responding to Trump's election victory. Really? Transgender minors? There's a whole article on this? Apparently. Townhall.com, great source. I use it quite often. It says transgender minors in the United States have been flooding crisis hotlines ever since President-elect Donald Trump won the election. Well, so here's the thing. If you raise them on a steady diet of fear and uncertainty, then what are they going to react with? Fear and uncertainty. They don't, when you've told someone you're wrong and the only way you can be right is if you listen to us, and if you listen to him, you'll never be allowed to be right. You'll remain wrong. They are already so confused, and they are preying upon the mental challenges that transgenderism, gender dysphoria, already exhibits. But it says here that we've had crisis hotlines with a steady stream of kids calling in. It says Trump's intention to roll back the Title IX reforms that Biden has tried to foist on schools out there in the world to allow transgenders to play in sports with girls and all that, to encompass the concepts of gender identity being considered a gender positive thing. Well, I didn't know this. There was an ad that was run. The Trump campaign ran an ad that said, Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you. Does that sound threatening to you?
Not really.
It's because it's not.
Well, but and that ad specifically was talking about how they Kamala was for funding prisoners to have sex changes. It was not. It was not like a Donald Trump is going to go out and throw people in jail because they're transgender, or oh my gosh, they're gonna put kids in jail or give transgenders the death penalty because Donald Trump just hates transgenders that much. That's not what that ad was. It was simply the fact that maybe they shouldn't be using taxpayer money to give people in jail transgender surgeries, but yeah, it's twisted completely.
Well, ABC News took that ad and converted it into this. Ready? ABC News, quote, "For one Alabama teen, the ads seem to paint transgender and non-binary people as a threat to society." The weekend before Election Day, the 16-year-old teen from Alabama, apparently, who identifies as non-binary and uses the pronouns he and they, called a crisis hotline at the Rainbow Youth Project, a group that serves LGBTQ plus young people, has received more than 5,500 calls to its crisis hotline. It usually gets 3,700 a month. Now it got 5,500. So I guess it's all like about a 40% increase. Okay, one Alabama teen has called into the. So I feel bad that the teen felt necessary to call into a hotline. But the bottom line is I put the onus of this back on the purveyors of all this agenda. If you raise a kid on a steady diet of fear and uncertainty, the way they react to the world is through fear and uncertainty. It's the lens through which they see things.
Yeah, and it relates to the abortion issue too. Of when Kamala was going to get into office, abortion was going to be legal nationwide, which wasn't true. Nothing was going to change with abortion when she got in office. And now that Trump's going to be in office, everybody who's ever had an abortion is going to be thrown in jail. It seems like it's just complete nonsense, and it's running off of fear and just not off reality.
But now we know they're not, because they're all shaving their heads and wearing blue bands and call themselves 4Bs.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about that issue anymore.
I got news. Some of them couldn't find a date anyway.
Nope.
Just saying. So, here's the bottom line. How we take care of our kids, part of it is stop allowing them to be just basically psychologically abused with fear and uncertainty. You're not right. You got to get fixed. If Trump gets elected, you won't be allowed to get fixed, and then you'll never be right. Fear, uncertainty. That's number one. That's what we've been doing to our kids, or allowing to happen. And I'm telling you, we got to stop it. Save our kids. More of this when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to it. It is hour number 3 here on Meatloaf Monday. I want to remind you guys of several things going on around here. First of all, Rightside Media, the parent company of Rightside Radio, we are growing. We're adding some additional podcast opportunities. We'll be announcing that for you sometime in the very near future. But just know this, the latest edition of Right Click came out on Friday afternoon. And Right Click is the podcast that Birdman does. It's a video podcast. I've got the latest edition of Right Philosophy coming out on Wednesday. Keep your eyes open for that. We'll be announcing more in the near future. The podcast of the show that we do live every day, we put the audio up into podcast form. I mean, it is like, I don't know what the numbers are, but I bet we're way over 260,000 downloads right now. All this stuff is available for you. If you're not sure where to go, just go to our website, rightside.media.org, rightside.media.org. And by the way, we are right now streaming live on, if you're ever at a place where you're like, what kind of shirt's Phil wearing today? You just want to know. We actually video stream live the show every day. You can see us here in studio. And we're always streaming right now.
We are on YouTube, we are on Rumble, and then we are also streaming on both the Right Side Media Twitter account and Phil's personal Twitter account, which is at @SinPhilWilliams, or @SinPhilWilliams. Yeah. And the Right Side Media account is rightside_media. And also you go to rightside.media.org. The stream will be up on the live stream page there as well. All
the above, man. We are everywhere right now.
And we are now 13 followers away from 500 on Twitter.
Come on, people, help us out. We need to get 500. I mean, I'd love to get there today.
Yeah,
I'd love to get 5 on our. So we just really started trying to make more of a focus on our social media. Just in recent weeks, it's really ramped up. And between Butters and JP, they've been doing a great job of providing great content, lots of short videos, things that are out there, we're getting a lot of trend on YouTube right now. But if you go to YouTube, we'd appreciate you clicking subscribe. That actually helps us as a company. If you click subscribe to Rightside Media on YouTube. And at the same time, if you wouldn't mind, if you're on X, if you're on Twitter, go to Rightside_media and hit follow on that. We're 13 away from a magic number of 500. Apparently, Twitter has these gates you pass through. When you hit 500, you can start doing more stuff. When you hit 1,000, even more stuff. So we want to do more stuff.
Yep.
So take us to the next level, people. 13 more is all we need? Good gosh. All right, I am in number 2 of the Triple Dipper, Save Our Kids. It's not just, by the way, minor children. Younger children, like tender age kids. I mean, that's a big deal. But even we're looking at, like, they go off to college, a lot of them are still minors in the eyes of the law. And truthfully, they live like minors regardless. Adulting often doesn't even start until, they're out of college. But the Daily Signal has a piece that I love. I don't know who Macy Gunnell is, but I would love to get her on the show and talk to her. But you may be familiar, up in Notre Dame, they have St. Mary's College, which is a girls' college adjacent to Notre Dame. It's right there in the same community. It's a Catholic all-women's college. And Macy Gunnell was a student there. And she said she woke up I take it back, she was an employee there. She had a campus job in the admissions office at St. Mary's College. And one day she was shocked when she found out that very quietly a policy had been in place that was going to allow applicants who consistently live and identify as women to become students at the all-women's college. There's no reason to say that unless you absolutely are intent upon letting guys live in the girls' dorm, which is what was going to happen. She said in her own words here in this Daily Signal piece, she said, the impact of such a policy at an all-women's school would have been egregious. The administrators and the self-proclaimed feminists at my Catholic college wanted to force us to sleep in the same rooms as men, share bathrooms with men, change clothes in front of men. And yet the college's president, Katie Conboy, was celebrating it. So basically leadership was like, all in, man, this is cool. We don't care what happens to the young ladies that we're in charge of. We don't care if they're still minors. We don't care if they paid tuition expecting to go to an all-women's college. This is what she says, and I love this. This young lady says, no fight is more noble than the fight for the truth. I think that needs to be like a bumper sticker. No fight is more noble than the fight for the truth. She says, I knew something had to be done. I knew I had to do it. I could not sit back and watch something so insulting destroy the very fabric of what made my women's Catholic college so special. I knew it would not be an easy battle, but that did not stop me. So here's what she did. I'll paraphrase, but she went ahead, she gathered up like 100 other students. She got a network of more than 1,000 alumni and friends and family. By the way, it was all bipartisan. There were some left-wing politicians who joined her because they recognized what it was doing to an all-Catholic girls' school. And they went at it. And they realized that they couldn't make it about blue and red politics. They had to make it about green. So they went at the donors, which everybody knew who they were. They went at the donors who supported the university. They believed that the boycott that they helped organize created a strong financial protest that resulted in the college losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in donor funds, to the point that it finally left the college no choice but to ultimately withdraw the policy. That's what I'm talking about. But you know what? What were they thinking? How did this Katie Conboy become the president of an all-women's Catholic university and then celebrate the idea of putting men in the women's dorms with minor females? Can you imagine? You send your daughter off and you've made a choice to go to an all-women's school. How cool that we still have that option. And yet she gets there and gets a dude for a roommate. Can you imagine? I'd like to know what happened to the college president. I'd like to know if Katie Conboy is still the president of this all-female college. But that story is Dateline yesterday. So that's a very recent, fresh story. All right, one other thing that I want to talk about. Save our kids. It's not just the transgender ideology on young children. It's not just thrusting, dudes into girls' dorms in college. Then there's things like, you know what? It's actually okay to protect our kids from smut. Just saying. It's actually okay to protect our kids from smut and things they should never have to see online. I'll never forget my daughter when she was in middle school. I think I've said it on the air before. She had to do a book report on government, and she chose to do one on the White House. So she went online to find out information, not knowing that whitehouse.gov is the official information site for the White House. She went to something called whitehouse.com, which turns out is a hardcore porn site, and they knew exactly what they were doing when they named it that. And my daughter was so upset. Well, she shouldn't have to have been exposed to that, but that's the kind of thing they do. They worm their way in. They know exactly what they're doing. But then there's easy fixes. Easy fixes. Like, for instance, in Alabama this past year, you may recall we had an awesome lady on, named Malia Stevens, and she's a counselor for kids who have been addicted to porn as children. We had a bill in the Alabama legislature. All that bill did was say when you buy a new phone, every new phone, by the way, already has this. You're not asking for anything new. When you go down to the Apple store or the Verizon store or wherever you buy your phones, every new phone already has a porn filter built into it. All you have to do is turn it on. I didn't know it was there. It's like buried in all the filters. But when you buy a new phone, all this new law said was it will be turned on when you buy the phone. In other words, hey, Verizon store, hey, Apple store, your techs, your people that do things, when they're showing you how to charge up your phone and transfer your contacts to it and save things to the cloud, they also go flickety flick and tap that button and activate the porn filter. It's already in there. Why would they not? Because what it does then is it prevents children from seeing things they shouldn't see. Our legislature couldn't get it done. Shame on them. It should have gotten done. 2 years in a row now, we have fought to see that thing through. And I believe it's going to come up again this year. That's one of those you look at it and you go, why would you not? Well, you know why they've not? Because big tech fights it. Big tech doesn't want the filter. I'm sorry, big tech, the filter's already there. Oh, that's right, we just don't want it turned on. Why don't you want it turned on? I don't know, because maybe it would defeat some of the other apps from making money on our phones. Oh, that's what it is. So you don't care about the kids, it's about the dollar signs. Well, the Senate, the U.S. Senate, also passed a thing called the Kids Online Safety Act. Big tech has opposed it left and right. What does it do? All it does is put a duty of care on big tech to not allow these things to just fall into kids' news feeds. But Meta, the parent company of Facebook, and Alphabet that owns Google and YouTube have been fighting against it. And I'm telling you, there's going to come a day where we're going to face the music for this. And I'm telling you, I also believe that we're going to see mass tort litigation on things that are happening to kids even now. In 10 years, we're going to see mass tort litigation. I got a little more on this when we get back from the break. I'll move it into education. As we save our kids, part of that's the education environment.
Before we go to break,
Yeah.
I just got to say, we are now 504 followers on Twitter.
Did we just hit it?
So I think the ruffians deserve a round of applause for that.
You ruffians are awesome. You Rightside ruffians are the bomb. Listen, that is just too good, man. Appreciate it. And by the way, JP, congratulations to you because you're taking it next level with us, and we appreciate that. Take me to a break, brother, while I just stand here and relish the fact that we hit 500 like that. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Save our kids. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. I'm going to finish up this dipper here before the break on Save Our Kids. Let me tell you, so far I have covered big tech just deciding that the dollar signs are more important than the kids seeing porn. I've covered women finding out that when they minor, women like 18-year-olds, which are still minor in the eyes of the law, going to college, all women's college, finding out that guys are going to be allowed to stay in their dorms. Talking about how kids are being preyed upon with this gender dysphoria, transgenderism agenda, where they're being told that through a steady diet of fear and uncertainty that their lives are going to be awful if Trump gets elected. And so they start calling in crisis hotlines because they're scared now because they saw an ad on TV, and which sounds ridiculous, but it's also pitiful. And they've been schooled to be pitiful in that way. But let's talk about education for a minute. Like, for instance, I got a piece right here. How about some of the aggressive, liberal, progressive agendas, aggressive progressives, that are finding their way into education environments? We see it all the time, unfortunately. Now, we've been able to get rid of a lot of it in Alabama, but not so much everywhere else. Pennsylvania's had an issue. The Pennsylvania Department of Education, story here on National Review that came out last Friday. Pennsylvania Department of Education has now been forced to reverse one of their progressive policies. They had a thing, they called it the Culturally Relevant and Sustaining Education Program Framework Guidelines. I just saw you wince over there. That's too much for a bumper sticker.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the face I just made is the face I make a lot with this topic, when I hear stuff like that.
Yeah, put this on your business card. What's your name? Well, my name is, John Smith, and I work for the Culturally Relevant and Sustaining Education Program Framework Guidelines Department at the Department of Education. That's every Scrabble word known to man going in right there.
Yep.
Anyway, it sought to mandate that educators affirm and impose upon their students highly ideological beliefs about contentious social and political issues, according to a conservative Catholic law firm called the Thomas More Society. It said it required educators throughout Pennsylvania to make acknowledgments of the biases that exist in education, microaggressions, other unconscious biases. And bottom line is they sued. Good for them. When you have critical race theory being thrust upon your kids, when you have affirmation of gender dysphoria, when you have the imposition of highly ideological and contentious beliefs that will fall way outside the scope of reading, writing, and arithmetic, guess what? It's no longer about education. It's about the agenda, and that's where they were. Well,
it's about indoctrination.
Thank you very much. Education, indoctrination. Yep, I see it. Good word. But they sued, and just last month, the state of Pennsylvania rescinded the policy. So now I guess if you have the business card that says that you belong to the Culturally Relevant Sustaining Education Program Framework Guidelines Department, you no longer have a job, I guess. But you got to look at that and go, okay, if that kind of crap is happening, and it's happening on a regular basis, if that kind of crap is happening, then what can we do about it? Well, one of the things we can do is make sure that we get away from the monolithic departments of education, especially the U.S. Department of Education. So I'll end with this. Wall Street Journal. Dateline last Wednesday. President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to remake education in the U.S., pledging to exert more control over funding and classroom lessons to curb what he views as left-leaning tendencies. He's not going to exert more control over funding. He's going to let us have the funding at the state level. So first thing he wants to do, eliminate the Department of Education. Well, good. They've had a 40-year run of presiding over declining test scores and failing levels of education nationwide while sucking down $40 billion or more from the national budget. Associated Press poll last year found that nearly 2/3 of Americans said the federal government doesn't spend enough money on education. Well, I got news. Most of those would also say, just send it to us and we'll take care of it. But Trump's going to have to appoint a Secretary of Education. He has to, because the role has to be filled. But right now, some of his top choices are private school and school choice advocates. Woo! That's going to make the teachers' unions' heads explode. But Trump's also said he'll wage a war on woke on college campuses. Basically, if you have an anti-Semitism movement allowed on your campus, he will start withholding federal funding. Woo! He'll disband programs that focus on non-white student groups or reduce accommodations for transgender students. He'll also get back to Title IX being what it was intended to be. He'll also ban critical race theory. He'll also start working with the accreditation system, because if you want to remain accredited, you might want to recognize that federal accreditation usually means something. And then there's universal school choice, which he's going to be pushing for and asking Congress to jump on with. That's how we save our kids. We deal with those issues. The smut that they're being forced to see, the transgenderism they're being forced to endure, the idea of being indoctrinated with fear and uncertainty, and then getting the wokeness out of their school systems. I'm telling you, all that, and teach them about Jesus, and I guarantee you their lives will be different. All right, we're going to come back, and I got a question I need your input on. You're going to like this one. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Looking forward to the Trump administration. What classic rock song? He says, Great Balls of Fire. That's a good one. Ron from Tuscumbia says, You got another think coming. That was, let's see, You got another think coming. Who is that? That is, that's, hang on a second. I'm almost there. I can see it. You got another, Judas Priest. That's Judas Priest. Darlene from Decatur says, Happy by Pharrell Williams. Yes, indeed. Tim from Gurley says, Sorry, country, you can't keep a good man down. Did you already read that one already? You did, didn't you? What have I not read yet? What do we got? What classic rock song best reminds you or makes you feel good about the election we had and the incoming Trump administration?
David from Athens says, Bridge Over Troubled Waters.
Yes, I saw that one. Wendell from Baton Rouge says, sticking with BTO, taking care of business. Yeah, we're going to be taking care of some business. Lisa from Huntsville, one of my favorites. I love the guitar solo in this one. Tom Petty's Running Down a Dream. And then she says, by the way, Tom Petty just rolled over in his grave. Terry from Hartsville says, We are the champions.
Yeah.
I like it. I can see that. I can't keep up with this. You guys are awesome. Listen, what classic rock song best describes how you feel about the most recent election and the incoming Trump administration? Well, we got a brand new texter. Tell us. He says that we're not on the highway to hell any longer. Well, that's true.
We're on the stairway to heaven.
That's right. Ask him who that is, man. Yeah, we're on the stairway to heaven, not the highway to hell. Bob from Madison, for whom the bell tolls. Okay. David from Tuscumbia. Matthew Wilder, Ain't Gonna Break My Stride. I hadn't thought of half of these. John from Highway 20 says, Break On Through to the Other Side. Yes. God, this is awesome. Steve M from Huntsville says, More Than a Feeling by Boston. One of my favorite songs. By the way, I think that More Than a Feeling is one of the most perfect songs ever written.
100%.
You agree?
I'm big. You can thank my dad for this. I'm a big time Boston fan.
Oh, are you
as
kidding?
well.
One of my favorite groups of all time.
Yeah.
Nobody mixes guitars like Boston.
Some of my favorite memories is me and my dad will just hit play on a Boston album and we'll turn all the way up and we'll just let the whole album play through. It's great. Yeah, that one's a great one.
That's good stuff. James St. Clair says, Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf. Walking on Sunshine. Who sent this one? Someone says I'm driving. Sent from my car. Thank you. We're glad you're driving and texting just by using your dash button. So thank you very much. But Walking on Sunshine, I love that song. Jeff from Indiana says the best song, even though it's not classic rock, is Charlie Daniels in America. That is a good one. That is absolutely a good one. And at least this time we didn't have to worry about the devil going down to Georgia.
Yeah.
There's that. John from Huntsville says, Phil, I told you before, I only know one classic rock song. It's the song Jump. And I'm not a classic rock fan. Jump works for me. By the way, when I was at Army Airborne School eons ago, when I was young and full of piss and vinegar, at Airborne School, every morning they blew the bugle to wake us up and then immediately put Jump by Van Halen super loud on all the loudspeakers. It was quite the way to wake up. Taylor from Vincent, Alabama says, Eye of the Tiger or the theme from Rocky, either one. That works. I like both. They're both Rocky songs. Mike from Huntsville says, Aerosmith's Back in the Saddle. Yes. I'm back. Okay. Don't Stop Believing by Journey, says TL from Huntsville. That's another good one. Your dad's a Journey fan too, right?
Yeah, he is,
absolutely. Yeah. Of course, your dad and I grew up in the same era. So.
Yep.
I used to drive down the road with my kids, especially Josh.
Yeah.
And I like the radio would be on, and I would look at it and go, "Quick, who sings it?" and they got tickled if they couldn't name it. So they learned quickly to know who was singing this. And now Josh is a classic rock fan.
Yeah.
Big time. Lewis from Trinity says, I got my x-ray training from the Army as well as field med school. Went from basic training to an x-ray tech in 9 months. That was a good education. Thank you, Lewis. Appreciate your service. Thank you very much. Matt from Huntsville says, for the last 2 years, it's been Merle Haggard. Are the good times really over? No, they are not. One more for the break. Jeremy from Madison says, Another Brick in the Wall by Pink Floyd. Interesting.
My favorite band.
You love Pink Floyd,
Oh,
huh?
yeah, big Pink Floyd guy.
I tell you what, I'll get a couple more. Graham from Meridianville says, taking care of business. Gary MS from Huntsville says, definitely just kidding. This is you said that one already. This is the one about Alice Cooper. And then Dave from Madison says, Jim Dandy to the rescue, which now I'll be singing that one the rest of the night. All right, we're gonna take a break right now. You guys are awesome. You got one like Jay from Florence has texted in. James Brown, I feel good. There's a sense of optimism in the air. You still got time. Text us in. What classic rock song best describes the way you feel about the election and the incoming Trump administration? I think we named half of classic rock. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Let me grab the phone real quick. By the way, the text lines are still going bananas. You guys are amazing. I mean, so the question has been, and it's filled up our time here, but the question has been, what classic rock song best describes the way you feel about the recent election or the way forward with the new Trump administration? Mike's on the line. I don't know where he's from. Mike, where are you from, buddy?
Hello?
Hey, Mike, this is Phil. Where are you from?
I'm calling from Madison. How are you today?
I'm good, Mike. What's on your mind?
So, I can't believe no one has yet said this song, The Who's Won't Get Fooled Again.
Perfect. I think that the Who had to be in there somewhere, so that works out just fine. Good call, Mike. Appreciate you, man.
All right, have a blessed day.
Right. Take care, you too. What else we get in here? I got some that I didn't even get to. Where did it go? I saw one just to scroll down the line. Chris from Gadsden says, I know it's not a classic song, but I'm going to submit Tony Orlando and Don's Knock 3 Times. What? Okay, I guess he had to knock 3 times to get reelected. TL from Huntsville says, we're not going to take it anymore. Twisted Sister. Yes, again. Chip from Muscle Shoals, Springsteen. Okay, we can't do Springsteen, but okay, he says Glory Days. So, okay, we'll talk about it. But I wasn't going to allow Springsteen in here anywhere, but okay, we'll let it go. Bob from Madison says Excitable from Def Leppard. Had to have some, you know what, we might need some Pyromania from Def Leppard too, because he's going to burn some things down. By the way, you know Def Leppard. What is unique about the members of Def Leppard? What is unique in all the world? Like nobody else has this.
I don't know.
A one-armed drummer.
Oh, I did know that.
A one-armed drummer. Can you imagine?
That's impressive.
Chris from Alabama hitting us with some Boston again. Don't look back.
Yeah.
I wish we could just play it like right now.
It's funny you say that. I think that's going to be one of my most listened to songs this year on Spotify. And you know where I heard it for the first time?
Where's
was
that?
when me and Emily filled in. We were here and it played during the break, and I was like, "What is that song?" I was like, "That song is really good," and I got put on my playlist.
You've never heard "Don't Look Back" by Boston?
Nope, I never. I'd heard the amount of Boston I'd heard. That particular one I'd never heard before. It's a great song.
Title song off their second album.
It's great.
It absolutely is. Boston is one of those anomalies too. The guy. The lead guy, well, first of all, the voice of Boston was Brad Delp, who has now passed away. He had one of those incredible voices in all of classic rock. Like, how do you find range like that? There were times I wasn't sure if it was his voice or a guitar. But then Tom Schultz is the lead guitarist, one of the chief songwriters. Tom Schultz is actually an MIT graduate who actually invented some of the gear they used, and like the amps and things that they used. But Tom Schultz was such a perfectionist that it took them, I want to say, 6 years to get their third album out.
Yeah,
it
was worth it.
It was. Third Stage, it was good. John from Brownsboro says, Crazy Train by Ozzy. All right, so Crazy Train used to be the one we felt like about, but now we're saying it's so good it's crazy again. Learning to Fly by Tom Petty, says Monty from Huntsville. Donnie's on the Road. So now we know it's Donnie. Why don't you just call him Donnie on the Road? Just call him Donnie on the Road. Put him down in there. Etta James, says JR from Rogersville. Etta James, At Last. At last. Yes, indeed. Jeff from Indiana is doing Boston again. We're ready. Is that part of the Third Stage album? I think it is. It is.
I think so.
I think it is. Louis from Arab wants some Cool in the Gang. Celebration. I'm digging it. Y'all are awesome. And then scrolling down to get back, John from Huntsville has the grades. Says Phil gets a solid A for his performance. However, today's winner is obviously JP with a perfect A triple plus. Congratulations. I enjoyed Off the Bench this past Saturday. That's your sports show.
Appreciate it.
And I was a little surprised you managed to get somebody who performed on American Idol to be your guest picker. That's why I gave you massive extra credit points today.
Yep. Kelsey and Brennan Elder are good friends, so he's able to get them on there.
Well, now hang on a second.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to dispute these grades. How can he bring in things from outside today's show and give you points for it?
Seems a little bit unfair, right?
It does.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I've been treated well at this point. Mike from Madison just texted in. He says, well, you know what, Mike, I'm not going to read that. Lewis from Trinity says, I'm sorry. Part of that was that text he had about his time in the service. Appreciate you, man. I didn't even get to all these. Wayne from Southside says another one bites the dust. and then Who Let the Dogs Out. Victor from Huntsville says The Show Must Go On by Queen. This goes on, but one that I have to get to is Mike from Huntsville. Got to have some Tom Sawyer by Rush.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Sawyer, mean child. Today's Tom Sawyer. Yep, mean child. There we go. By the way, have you ever watched a drum solo by Neil Peart of Rush?
I've not seen it.
He has now passed away, but the man is the biggest drum aficionado in the world. And like when he sits down, his drums are not in front of him. His drums wrap all the way around him. He's a percussionist. He would tell you he's not a drummer. He's a percussionist.
Yeah.
He's got everything in the world you can hit with a stick, and it wraps all the way around him. And then to watch him go, it's like the man gets in the zone and things just happen. It's the most technical percussionist you would ever
Gotta
find.
get it right.
Brother, don't call him a drummer. All right, listen, you guys are an amazing audience. I didn't even get to, like Thomas from Killen wants Thriller by Michael Jackson. Awesome. And then James from St. Clair said, there's no lyrics for this one, but it's To the Top by Too Many Zoos. I don't know who that is, but I like it. Mama, I'm Coming Home, Scott from Somerville says it's an Ozzy song, Mama, I'm Coming Home, which is, by the way, a really good song.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you think, Ozzy, he can actually sing. A little bit. Devin from Brownsboro says, na, 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 hey, 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 goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, listen, you guys are an amazing, amazing audience. That was fun. That was just something to break the mood. We just did 2 segments that were tough. We have All of the Above energy to get us out of the energy sector slump that we're in, and we have Save Our Kids. Tomorrow, I got to talk some national defense. Tomorrow, we will have a discussion about the U.S. military, foreign policy, and where the war in Ukraine and all of that is going. So stay tuned. In the meantime, remember this. There are more of us than there are of them. God is still on his throne. Stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.